The metal chair scraped against the floor as Commander Lee Hanna sat down. The room was cold and white with bright lights that hurt your eyes if you looked up. Across from her, chained to another chair, was the last living member of the Thakan Empire. The alien looked nothing like a human. It had purple skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights and 6 dark eyes arranged in 2 rows across its face. Its body was tall and thin, maybe 8 feet if it could stand up straight. But it couldn't stand anymore. Purple blood dripped from wounds all over its body, making small puddles on the white floor. This was Veltar, once a proud warrior of the Thakan Empire. Now it was the only one left alive. Hanna pressed a button on the small device in her hand. A red light came on, showing it was recording. She had to get this conversation on record. The war was over, but the questions remained. How did humans win against an empire that ruled the stars for thousands of years? You said you wanted to talk, Hanna said in a quiet voice. Here I am. Veltar's 6 eyes moved to look at her. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. Yes, human, I must speak before I die. Your people need to know what they have become. Hanna leaned back in her chair. She had been fighting the Thakans for 12 years. Ever since she was a young officer fresh out of the academy. Back then, everyone thought the war would last maybe a few months. The Thakans had ships that could destroy entire planets. They had weapons that could kill you with a thought. They had ruled 17 different star systems while humans were still fighting each other on Earth. But now, 12 years later, the Thakans were gone. All of them, except for this one broken creature sitting across from her. The war started when your people found us, Hanna said. You came to our solar system thinking we would be easy to defeat. Veltar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was more like broken glass falling on stone. Easy? We thought you were insects. Less than insects. We watched your primitive signals from space and laughed at how backward you were. The alien's head tilted to one side. Do you know what we called your species when we first discovered you? We called you the Crawlers, because you crawled on the surface of one small planet fighting with metal sticks and fire. Hanna felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. We weren't as primitive as you thought. No, Veltar said, and more purple blood dripped from its mouth. That was our first mistake. We assumed you were exactly what you appeared to be. Weak, stupid, harmless. The alien's eyes closed for a moment, then opened again. When our fleet arrived at your outer colonies, we expected to find small settlements protected by simple weapons, and that is exactly what we found. Your people ran in fear when our ships appeared. Your weapons could barely scratch our armor. Your minds were filled with terror when our telepaths touched them. Hanna knew this part of the story. She had read the reports from those early battles. The Thakans had destroyed human colonies easily, taking prisoners and studying human technology. It looked like a hopeless fight, but something was wrong, Veltar continued. Your people gave up too easily. They ran too quickly, and every time we captured one of your ships, we found that it was empty. No crew, just machines. We learned from watching you, Hanna said. Every battle taught us something new about your weapons, your ships, your way of fighting. While we were busy celebrating our victories, you were studying us, Veltar said. Every scan of our ships, every telepathic probe of your minds, every weapon we used against you, you were learning. And we never realized it. The alien coughed, spraying more purple blood across the white table between them. I was there, human. I was there when we first realized that your primitive technology was not what it seemed. I was there when our telepaths started screaming, because human minds had become weapons against us. I was there when entire fleets of our ships fell to swarms of your tiny fighters. Hanna remembered those battles too. She had been a captain then, leading one of the first successful attacks on a Thakan fleet. The plan had been simple but brutal. Send thousands of small, fast ships against the massive Thakan vessels. Most of the small ships would be destroyed, but enough would get through to cripple the enemy. You don't fight like any other species we had ever encountered, Veltar said. Other races fight with honor. They follow rules. They try to minimize their losses. But you You fight like the survival of your entire species depends on every single battle. Because it did, Hana said simply. Yes, and that is why we lost. Veltar's voice was getting weaker. We thought we were fighting a war. You were fighting for the right to exist. We could afford to lose battles. You could not afford to lose even one. The aliens' breathing became more labored. That is why, I must warn you, human, the war with us is over. But there are others watching. Others who think they understand what humans are capable of. Hana leaned forward. This was important. What others? The Galactic Council, the Elder Races. They are meeting now, deciding what to do about your kind. Veltar's 6 eyes fixed on hers. And they are making the same mistake we did. 3 years before the interrogation, Captain Park Jinho stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars through the big window. His uniform was clean and pressed, but his hands were shaking slightly. Today was the day everything would change for humanity. "Sir, we're getting the signal," said Lieutenant Kim Sora from her seat at the control panel. "The Thakan fleet is entering our solar system." Jinho nodded slowly. "Good. Make sure they see exactly what we want them to see." The plan had been years in the making. When humans first detected the Thakan signals from deep space, they knew visitors were coming. The alien messages were not friendly. They spoke of conquest and slaves, of a great empire that would soon add Earth to its collection of worlds. Most people would have panicked. Most people would have built bigger weapons and stronger defenses. But the humans in charge had a different idea. They decided to lie. "Are the fake colonies ready?" Jinho asked. "Yes, sir," Sora replied. "All outer settlements are showing the technology levels we agreed on. Nothing newer than 50 years old." Jinho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Perfect. Let them think we're still using old rockets and simple computers." The truth was very different. While the Thakans had been traveling through space for months to reach Earth, human scientists had been working day and night. They had built new weapons, new ships, and new ways of fighting. But all of this was hidden on the dark side of the moon and in secret bases deep underground. On his screen, Jinho could see the Thakan fleet approaching. The ships were huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They moved through space like metal whales, slow and confident. Each ship could probably destroy an entire city with one shot. "Sir, they're scanning our defenses," reported another officer. "Let them scan," Jinho said calmly. "Give them a good show." On the human colonies, actors dressed as frightened settlers ran around pretending to be scared. The weapons they showed to the Thakan scanners were real, but they were old and weak. The ships in orbit were actual human vessels, but they were empty of crew and filled with remote control systems. Lieutenant Commander Kang Jiwoo was hiding in one of the secret bases, watching the Thakan scans on her monitor. "They're buying it," she whispered to her team. "They think our particle cannons are the best we have." The Thakans had no idea that Jiwoo's base contained weapons that could punch holes through their strongest armor. They didn't know that human scientists had already figured out how to copy their technology from the signals they had sent ahead of their fleet. "Contact from the Thakan flagship," Sora announced. "They're demanding we surrender." Jinho picked up the communication device. When he spoke, he made his voice sound weak and scared. "Please, we don't want to fight. We're just simple people trying to live in peace." The Thakan commander's voice came through the speaker, translated by computer. "Your species will serve the Empire. Resist, and you will be destroyed." We understand," Jinho said, pretending to be terrified. "But we need time to prepare our people for surrender." "You have one day," the Thakan said, and cut the communication. As soon as the channel closed, Jinho's scared expression disappeared. He looked around at his crew with cold, calculating eyes. "Phase 1 complete. They think we're helpless. Now we move to Phase 2. The first battle happened exactly as planned. The Thakans attacked a human colony with overwhelming force. The human defenders fought bravely but were quickly defeated. The Thakan telepaths read the minds of the human prisoners and found exactly what they expected: fear, confusion, and despair. What the telepaths didn't know was that every human they captured had been trained for months to think specific thoughts. The fear was real, but the confusion was fake. The humans knew exactly what was happening. Dr. Yang Hyejin watched the battle from her hidden laboratory. "They're taking the bait perfectly," she said to her assistant. "Every scan they do gives us more information about their technology." "Are you sure the prisoners will be okay?" the assistant asked. "They volunteered," Yang said simply. "They know the risks. And they know that what we learn from their sacrifice will save millions of others." The Thakans destroyed 3 more human colonies over the next week. Each victory made them more confident and less careful. They began to spread their forces out, thinking the humans were too weak to fight back. Captain Ryu Dongwu was ready for them. His ship was one of the new ones, built with technology copied and improved from Thakan designs, but it looked old and slow on the outside, just like all the others. "Remember," he told his crew, "we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to make them think they're winning." The fake battle was perfect. Ryu's ship put up a good fight, but not too good. It fired its weapons, but they were the old weak ones that the Thakans expected. When the ship finally exploded, it looked like a real defeat. But Ryu and his crew had escaped in hidden pods long before the explosion. The ship that blew up was empty, just like all the others. "Sir," an officer whispered to the Thakan commander as they watched the human ship burn. That was almost too easy. The commander waved his hand dismissively. "These humans are exactly what we expected. Weak, primitive, and stupid. This conquest will be over in a few more weeks." He had no idea that the real war hadn't even started yet. 1 year after the fake defeats, Admiral Cho Minho stood in the war room deep under the moon's surface. The walls were covered with screens showing battles happening across the galaxy. But these battles were different from the early ones. Now the humans were winning. "Show me the Kepler 442 battle again," Minho said to his aide. The main screen lit up with footage from space. A Thakan fleet was attacking a human colony, just like they had done many times before. But this time, something went wrong for the aliens. The Thakan soldiers moved through their own ship hallways, but they were not walking straight. They stumbled and fell, holding their heads and making sounds of pain. Some of them were screaming. "The psionic scramblers are working better than we hoped," said Dr. Yang Hyejin from her seat at the control panel. "Their telepathic abilities are now hurting them instead of helping them." Minho nodded slowly. For thousands of years, the Thakans had used their mind powers to read thoughts and control other species. It was their greatest weapon, but human scientists had studied captured Thakan equipment and found a way to turn that weapon against them. "How long did it take us to build the scramblers?" Minho asked. 3 months from the first captured telepathic device to working prototype," Yang replied. "Another 2 months to make them small enough to hide in our ships." On the screen, a Thakan commander was trying to give orders to his troops, but his telepathic commands were bouncing back into his own mind. He fell to his knees, purple blood coming from his nose. "Sir, we're getting reports from the Vega system," an officer announced. "The Thakans tried to use their quantum disruptors on our prisoners." Minho raised an eyebrow. "And? The disruptors are now healing our people instead of hurting them. Engineering Team 7 figured out how to reverse the quantum field. This was what terrified the Thakans. Every weapon they used, humans found a way to turn it around. Every advantage they had, humans took away and made it their own. What had taken the alien empire millions of years to develop, humans were copying and improving in weeks." Lieutenant Commander Kang Ji-woo was leading a boarding team inside a Thakan battleship. The corridors were dark now because the humans had learned to shut down Thakan power systems. Ji-woo's team moved quietly through the ship, their boots making no sound on the metal floors. "Target is the command center," Ji-woo whispered into her radio. "Remember, we want the commander alive." Her team reached the bridge, where the Thakan officers were trying to restart their systems. When the aliens saw the humans, they reached for their energy weapons. But the weapons didn't work. The humans had found a way to disable them from a distance. Surrender, Jiwoo said in the Thakhan language. Humans had learned to speak alien languages in just a few months of war. The Thakhan commander looked at her with all 6 eyes wide with fear. How? He asked. How do you adapt so quickly? Jiwoo didn't answer. She just gestured for her team to take the aliens prisoner. Later, in the interrogation room, the captured Thakhan commander sat across from Captain Park Jinho. The alien's purple skin had turned a lighter color, which meant he was scared. Your species is impossible, the commander said through the translator. We studied you for months before we attacked. We knew everything about your technology, your weapons, your ways of fighting. Jinho leaned back in his chair. You knew what we wanted you to know. But even after the war started, you kept changing. The commander continued. Every time we developed a new strategy, you had an answer ready. Every time we tried a new weapon, you made it useless. How do you do this? We don't fight like you do, Jinho said simply. You fight with honor and rules. You try to win battles the same way. Your ancestors did. But we fight to survive. The Thakhan commander shook his head. No, it's more than that. Your species, and you don't just adapt. You improve everything you touch. You take our weapons and make them better than we ever could. This was true. Human engineers had taken Thakhan energy cannons and made them twice as powerful. They had copied Thakhan shield technology and made it 3 times stronger. They had even improved on Thakhan faster than light travel, making human ships quicker than anything in the alien fleet. Captain Ryu Dongwu demonstrated the human way of fighting during the Battle of Wolf 359. His ship was damaged and losing power, surrounded by 3 Thakhan cruisers. Any other species would have tried to escape or surrendered to save lives. Instead, Ryu did something that no Thakhan could understand. He aimed his damaged ship directly at the largest enemy vessel and pushed his engines to maximum power. Sir, we can still escape in the life pods, his second officer said. No, Ryu replied calmly. If we run, they'll just chase down more of our ships. But if we take out their command cruiser, the whole formation will fall apart. The human ship crashed into the Thakhan flagship at tremendous speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 star systems away. Ryu and his crew died, but the Thakhan fleet was left without leadership and was easily defeated by other human ships. When news of the battle reached the Thakhan High Command, their military leaders couldn't believe what they heard. He destroyed his own ship on purpose? One general asked. To win the battle, yes, the messenger replied, but that's insane. No rational being would do such a thing. The humans do it all the time, sir. They call it sacrifice for the greater good. The general sat down heavily in his chair. How do we fight an enemy that doesn't care about dying? He would never find the answer to that question. 6 months before the war ended, Lieutenant Commander Kang Ji-woo sat in the cockpit of her tiny fighter ship. Around her, thousands of other small ships floated in the darkness of space. They were called Hornets, and they were about to change everything. Listen up, everyone, Ji-woo spoke into her radio. Today we stop fighting like the Thakhans expect us to fight. Today we become something they've never seen before. Her fighter was small, maybe the size of a school bus. It had thin armor and weak shields. In a fair fight against a Thakhan battleship, it would be destroyed in seconds. But Ji-woo wasn't planning to fight fair. Remember the plan, she continued. We're not trying to win duels. We're not trying to be heroes. We're trying to break their entire formation by being everywhere at once. The Thakhan fleet was huge. 30 battleships, each one bigger than a city block. They moved in perfect formation through space, their massive guns ready to destroy anything that challenged them. For 1,000 years, no enemy had ever broken a Thakhan battle formation. Admiral Veltar commanded the fleet from his flagship. He was confident and proud, watching the human ships approach on his screen. What he saw made him laugh. Look at this, he said to his officers. The humans are sending fighters against us, tiny little ships with barely any weapons. Should we launch our own fighters? Asked his second in command. No need, Veltar replied. Our main guns will destroy them all before they get close. This was exactly what Jiwoo had hoped he would think. The Thakans always fought ship against ship, big guns against big guns. They had never faced an enemy that attacked like a swarm of angry insects. "All units begin attack pattern Alpha," Jiwoo commanded. Suddenly, the neat formation of human fighters exploded outward like a cloud. Some ships went high, some went low, some flew in crazy zigzag patterns. There were so many of them moving, in so many different directions that the Thakan targeting computers couldn't keep up. "What are they doing?" Veltar asked, staring at his screen in confusion. The Thakan battleships started firing their massive guns. Each shot could destroy a fighter completely, and they did. Human ships began exploding all around the fleet, but for every fighter that died, 10 more kept coming. "Sir, we're destroying them easily," reported the weapons officer. "Then why don't I feel like we're winning?" Veltar muttered. The answer came quickly. While the big Thakan guns were busy shooting at fighters, they couldn't shoot at anything else. And while the Thakans were trying to hit fast-moving targets, other human ships were getting closer. Jiwoo's fighter dodged between laser blasts, moving so fast that the Thakan gunners couldn't track her. Behind her, a line of other fighters followed, weaving through the enemy formation like fish swimming through a net. "Hornet 7 to all units," she called out. "I'm seeing gaps in their point defense. The big ships can't cover each other when they're all shooting at us." This was the real plan. The fighters weren't meant to destroy the battleships. They were meant to make the battleships destroy themselves by forcing them to shoot in all directions, at once. Sergeant Omin Seo was watching from her boarding pod, waiting for the right moment. Her job was different from the fighter pilots. While they kept the Thakans busy outside, she would attack from inside. "Boarding teams, prepare for launch," came the order through her radio. Min Seo's pod was attached to the bottom of one of the larger human ships. It was designed to look like debris from a destroyed fighter. When the time was right, it would detach and drift toward the Thakan ships, looking like just another piece of wreckage. "Remember," she told her team of 12 soldiers, "once we're inside, we don't fight like soldiers. We fight like hunters." The pod drifted silently toward the largest Thakan battleship. All around it, the space battle continued. Fighters zipped past, guns fired in every direction, and ships exploded in balls of fire. But nobody noticed one small piece of metal floating through the chaos. The pod attached itself to the Thakan ship's hull with magnetic clamps. Min Seo activated the cutting torch and began burning through the armor. Within minutes, they had created a hole big enough to crawl through. Inside the Thakan ship, everything was chaos. Alarms were ringing. Officers were shouting orders, and the lights kept flickering as the ship's power systems struggled to keep up with all the weapons firing. "Split up," Min Seo whispered to her team. "Remember your targets." The soldiers disappeared into the ventilation system like ghosts. They had studied the plans of Thakan ships for months, memorizing every corridor and access tunnel. They knew where the power generators were, where the weapon controls were, and where the life support systems could be sabotaged. Min Seo crawled through a narrow air duct toward the main power core. Behind her, she could hear her team members moving through other parts of the ship. They communicated through hand signals and light taps on the metal walls. When she reached the power room, Min Seo saw 3 Thakan engineers working frantically to keep the systems running. They had no idea that death was crawling toward them through the ceiling. She dropped down behind them, moving so quietly that they didn't hear her until it was too late. Her knife found the first engineer before he could turn around. The second one managed to shout a warning, but Min Seo's gun silenced him quickly. The third engineer tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Within 10 minutes, Min Seo's team had taken control of the ship's most important systems. They shut down the weapons, turned off the shields, and opened all the airlocks on the lower decks. Outside, Admiral Veltar watched in horror as his flagship went dark. Then another battleship stopped firing, then another. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Sir, we're losing ships, but they're not being destroyed, they're just stopping." Veltar realized the truth too late. While his fleet had been busy fighting the fighters, the humans had been taking his ships from the inside. The swarm attack was just a distraction. The real attack had been invisible. "All ships, retreat," he ordered. But it was too late. Half his fleet was already under human control. Commander Lihana watched as Veltar's breathing became slower and more difficult. The alien's purple blood had formed a large pool on the white floor, and his 6 eyes were growing dim. She knew he didn't have much time left. "You're dying," Hana said quietly. "Why are you telling me all this? Why warn us about the Galactic Council?" Veltar's mandibles clicked weakly. Because I have seen what your species can do, and I know what mine could not." The alien struggled to sit up straighter in his chains. "The Council thinks they are different from us. They think they are smarter. They believe they have learned from our mistakes." Hana leaned forward. "What mistakes?" "We thought we knew what humans were," Veltar said, his voice getting weaker with each word. "We studied your signals from space. We watched your primitive wars. We saw creatures who fought with simple weapons and basic technology. We thought, you were just another young species that would be easy to conquer." The alien's eyes closed for a moment, then opened again. "But we were wrong about everything. You were not primitive. You were not simple. You were something else entirely." "What do you mean?" Hana asked. "Other species in the galaxy fight the way we fought," Veltar explained. "They build bigger weapons when they face bigger enemies. They make stronger shields when they face stronger attacks. They follow the same patterns that have existed for millions of years." The alien coughed, spraying more purple blood across the table. "But humans do something different. You don't just build bigger weapons. You change the entire way of fighting. You make the rules meaningless." Hana thought about the war they had just finished. The Thakans had expected ship-to-ship, battles with honor and tradition. Instead, humans had sent swarms of fighters and boarding teams. The aliens had prepared for frontal attacks, but humans had struck from inside their own ships. "The Council is meeting right now," Veltar continued. "Representatives from 12 elder races, species that have ruled the galaxy for millions of years. They are afraid of what humans might do next." "Let them be afraid," Hana said. "No, you don't understand." Veltar's voice became urgent. "They are making plans. They want to attack Earth before humans spread to more star systems. They think that if they work together, they can defeat you the way we could not." Hana felt a chill run down her spine. How many ships? Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. Every military vessel from 12 different empires, all coming to destroy your home world. The alien's breathing was becoming more labored. "But they are making the same mistake we made. They think they understand what humans are. They think they can predict what you will do. And they can't?" Veltar made that broken glass sound that was his version of laughter. "Can anyone predict what humans will do? Did we predict that you would pretend to be weak while secretly copying our technology? Did we predict that you would turn our own weapons against us? Did we predict that you would fight like what?" Hana asked. "Like a species that knows it will die if it loses," Veltar finished. "Every other race in the galaxy fights wars they can afford to lose. You fight like every battle is your last battle. You fight like your children's children depend on each victory." The alien's 6 eyes focused on Hana with desperate intensity. "The Council thinks they have advantages we did not have. They have more ships, more experience, more advanced technology. They believe these things will save them." "Won't they? Did they save us?" Veltar asked. "We had all those things too. We had ships that could crack planets. We had weapons that could kill with a thought. We had conquered dozens of star systems. And where are we now?" Hana looked around the empty interrogation room. "You're all dead." "Yes, all dead. Because we thought advantages and technology and numbers were enough. We thought war was about having better weapons than your enemy." Veltar's voice was now barely a whisper. "But humans taught us that war is not about having better weapons. War is about being willing to do whatever it takes to win. War is about being more desperate than your enemy." The alien's head fell forward, and for a moment Hana thought he had died. But then he looked up at her one more time. "When the Council comes," he said. They will bring their finest ships and their best warriors. They will have plans and strategies that have worked for millions of years. They will be confident and proud, just like we were. And they will discover what we discovered too late. None of that matters when you're fighting humans. Veltar's eyes were starting to close. Because humans don't fight fair. Humans don't follow rules. Humans don't accept defeat. The alien's voice was now so quiet that Hana had to lean forward to hear him. Tell your leaders, when the council fleet arrives, remember what destroyed the Thakan Empire. Don't let them think they know what humans will do, because the moment they believe they understand your species. Veltar's breathing stopped for several seconds. Hana thought he was gone. But then he opened his eyes one last time and spoke his final words. That's when you'll surprise them. That's when you'll do something they never expected. That's when you'll win. His voice was like wind through broken metal. My final message to the galaxy is simple. Don't ever assume you know what humans are capable of. Because that assumption killed us all. The life left Veltar's body, and Commander Lee Hana sat alone in the White Room, with a warning that would change humanity's future among the stars.